Hi guys, welcome back to Money Experiment PH. You might be wondering what was the intro about the airplane moving. So, I recently visited South Korea, and as you all know, many Filipinos go to Korea for travel or leisure. I visited a lot of places, including Myeongdong, and it really didn't feel like a foreign country at all as there were so many Filipinos. According to statistics in 2018, 460,000 Filipinos visited Korea. Even visa processing time has increased from 5 days to almost 1.5 months in the Korean embassy. So, what does this all have to do with today's video? For today's topic, we will be comparing several ways to convert Philippine peso to Korean won. As we all know, to travel to Korea or to any other foreign countries, you will need their local currency. I personally had a lot of encounters where people asked me what is the best way to convert their money. So I thought, why not make a video about it? And as for this one, the foreign currency will be Korean won. To begin with, I'm going to ask you a question. These are actual pictures of foreign exchange showing their rate in the departure area of the airport. So imagine yourself in the airport and you want to convert your Philippine peso to dollar because you heard it is better to convert it to dollar than directly convert it to the foreign currency, in this instance, Korean won. Which exchange will give you more dollars when you convert 10,000 pesos? I will give you 10 seconds to think. Have you decided where to go and convert your Philippine peso to US dollars? Is it the left exchange or the right exchange? Okay, the answer to the question which store will give you more dollars is we don't know. The number they are showing is the price when they buy US dollars, which means that's the price when you convert US dollars to Philippine peso. So it's not really applicable when you want to buy US dollars. I'm really not sure why those exchanges are showing rate of them buying in US dollars instead of selling in the departure area, but we need to be careful. It shows their buying price is 51, but if you ask what their selling rate is, you would have been told that it's approximately 52.2. Since you don't see their selling rate, you won't know which store will give you a better rate without asking. So let's learn the basics of foreign exchange rate. When you search USD PHP in Google, you will see a rate. That is what we call the reference rate. Unfortunately, that is not the rate you can convert your money from one currency to another currency. Whether you are going private foreign exchange or bank foreign exchange, they're going to charge you some fee by setting a different rate between when you sell or buy. That is called the spread. For them, buy low, sell high, the difference is their gain. For you, sell low, buy high, the difference is your loss. So for example, let's say USD PHP current reference rate is 51. Chances are you will have to buy USD paying more than 51 pesos. But when you sell USD, you will get less than 51 pesos. By now, you would have realized that the wider the spread, it is more disadvantageous to the customer. On the other hand, the tighter the spread, the more beneficial to the customers. Later in this video, we are going to compare many ways of converting Philippine peso to Korean won by computing how far their conversion rate is to the reference rate. By that, I meant how tight the spreads are for each way of converting. Before we move on, I will quickly explain how people write exchange rate. Conversion rate between USD and PHP can be written as USD/PHP or simply USD PHP. The currency that comes first is called base currency, and the latter is counter currency. So what does KRW PHP is equal to 0.043 mean? This means 1 Korean won is equal to 0.043 Philippine peso. In another example, what does Euro USD is equal to 1.2 mean? Yes, that's right. It means 1 euro is equal to 1.2 USD. So we will be classifying the methods we converted our money into three types. That's direct, indirect, ATM cash withdrawal, and credit card purchases. So before we proceed in discussing these methods, let's first discuss the different variables considered. So under column A are the different methods I've mentioned earlier. Column B are the dates when the transaction or conversion were done. So obviously we tried different methods on different dates. Although in the bottom part, you will see double entries for credit cards as there is difference between transaction date versus posting date for credit cards. Under column C are the reference rate, which we have discussed earlier in the earlier parts of this video. So the data here were extracted from BSP, which is Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and KEB, a bank in Korea, which we will be putting the links in the notes section of this video. The rates here are dependent on the date of which a transaction was made. Under column D, which is FX rate without fee, and column E are FX rates with fees. Under column F is actual rate, and under column G is the conversion loss. So just a brief background for columns D to G. Columns D and E will be discussed later under the ATM cash withdrawal method. Column F, which I said earlier, is the actual rate, is the rate where we were able to convert through the different methods. Column G, which is conversion loss, is the percentage of the value you lose while converting the money. This is the most important column in the spreadsheet as this column will help you determine the best conversion for you. This is considering the conversion loss, meaning the lower the figure in this column, the better the conversion for you. So let's go to the first method, which is the direct method. This means directly converting Philippine peso to Korean won. Under this, you will see that we tried 5 different methods, namely Mall S Exchange, Philippine Airport, Korea Airport, Malate E-Exchange, and self-service conversion machine in Insadong, in Korea. Take note of the conversion loss from this method as a whole, and we will be comparing the figures to the other methods in the later part of this video. So let's now go to our second method, which is the indirect method. This means converting Philippine peso to US dollars and then from US dollars to Korean won. Under this, you will see that we tried 9 different methods in total for us to convert our Philippine peso to Korean won. So in converting Philippine peso to US dollars, you went to the Philippine Airport, Mall S Exchange, Malate E-Exchange, 2 entries for BPI as we did this in 2 different dates, and 2 different entries as well for BDO as we also did this in 2 different dates. In converting US dollars to Korean won, we went to Korea Airport, Myeongdong Exchange, self-service conversion machine in Insadong, and K-Bank in South Korea. Next is the ATM cash withdrawal. You may be wondering how we were able to withdraw using ATM cards issued here in the Philippines. So to answer that question, there are actually global ATM machines in South Korea which sports debit cards such as Visa, MasterCard, and etc. The machines can be found mostly in banks, airports, bus terminals, and shopping centers. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that we will be discussing the purpose of columns D and E. Korean ATM and Philippine banks in general charge fees on international withdrawals. Some Philippine banks charge percentage fees while some others charge fixed fees. The Korean ATM that I used charged a fixed fee of 4,000 Korean won. So this means the smaller amount you withdraw, the larger the proportion of the fee is. In other words, if you withdraw a larger amount, the conversion loss will be lowered. So we tried 3 different cards and withdrew 100,000 Korean won each. Based on the bank's international withdrawal policies, I have tried to compute what would be the approximate rate if we have withdrawn the maximum amount the banks would allow. For that, FX rate without fees were computed so that we can simulate a larger amount withdrawal. Finally, credit cards. When you make credit card purchases in foreign countries, the exchange rate will be determined by the credit card companies like Visa or MasterCard. Their exchange rate will already include their service fee. In addition, credit card issuing banks also charge some fees on those international purchases. You can find this in your credit card terms and condition. A fun fact of international credit card purchase is that you won't know how much you will get charged in your local currency when you make the purchase. It is because of the difference between transaction date and posting date. Posting date is normally a few days later than the transaction date. And the posting date is when the exchange rate will be determined and actual local currency amount will be determined. So let's again shift our focus to the last column, which is the conversion loss. Having discussed all the methods, we can now note that converting your money directly from Philippine peso to Korean won is generally not good, as you can see in the table, so avoid it as much as possible. Another reason why this is not a practical way to convert is because BSP regulation does not allow bringing out of 10,000 Philippine peso in notes and coins outside the Philippines. As for indirect method, some of these channels are okay. However, you will need to consider the hassle of going to different exchanges just to convert your money. So, for the banks, which are BPI and BDO, most banks already do Forex. However, we only considered BDO and BPI as we are account holders in those banks. So their rates are good. However, you will need to consider requesting for the US dollars in advance and also preparing identification cards and finally bearing the hassle of physically queuing in those banks. Also, under indirect method where we converted our US dollars to Korean won, we did the following methods, namely, first, Korea Airport. It is safe and convenient, but the rate is the worst among the different methods in this category. Second, Myeongdong Exchange. Myeongdong is a very touristy place and is probably one of your destinations in your visit to South Korea. There are many exchanges in Myeongdong who are competing with each other. By the way, Myeongdong is known to have a really good exchange rate in Seoul. You'll probably need to visit a few different private exchanges to check which place has the best rate. Third is the self-service conversion machine in Insadong. The rates of this conversion machine are not so great, but you can probably use this for emergency purposes. Might as well check around the area if there are nearby private exchanges before you consider this option, as I believe those private exchange will give you a better rate. Number 4 is K-Bank in Korea. It is possible for foreigners to convert money here, but it is more strict than a private exchange. They might require you to complete some forms depending on the amount that you are converting. The rates are still better and convenient in private exchange compared to banks. For ATM cash withdrawals, so first is BPI card. BPI cards have daily limit of 60,000 pesos and the fee is $3.5 or 2% of the amount, whichever is higher. So again, when your withdrawal amount is small, a fixed 3.5% charge will be applied. And if your withdrawal amount is large, a 2% charge will be applied. In short, the conversion loss cannot be lower than 2%. In our example earlier, if you withdraw 60,000 pesos, the conversion loss will be at 2.9%. For Union Bank Ion Card, the daily limit is lower at 20,000 pesos. Note, however, that the customer can increase the limit in the physical branch. If you increase the limit and withdraw a larger number amount, their conversion loss will be lowered. For this method, the bank fee is fixed at $3. If you withdraw 20,000 pesos, the conversion loss will be at 4%. For GCash MasterCard, the daily limit is at 20,000 pesos. They charge a fixed amount of 150 peso per withdrawal. So if you withdraw 20,000, the conversion loss is at negative 1.4, meaning you converted money better than the reference rate. We have observed that when we make foreign transactions via GCash MasterCard, the exchange rate has been advantageous for the buying party. Note, however, that there is a 100,000 peso monthly cash in and cash out limit in GCash wallet. So assuming you haven't made any transactions through cash for a month, you can withdraw 20,000 pesos each day for 5 days maximum. For credit card purchases, the conversion loss mainly depends on the bank's fees on foreign purchases. I have 2 credit cards that I used. One is Citi Simplicity Visa and the other is BPI Amore Visa. If you're opting to use this method, make sure to find the terms and conditions of your card and know the following terms, which by the way were taken from my Citi credit card policy. You should be able to find similar agreements on your respective cards. Number 1, all charges made in foreign currencies, whether online or overseas transactions, will be automatically converted to Philippine peso on the posting dates at the prevailing exchange rate determined by your Visa or MasterCard. Number 2, Transactions in foreign currencies other than the US dollar. The amount will first be converted to US dollar before being converted to its Philippine peso equivalent. And number 3, a fee of up to 3.525% will be imposed on the converted amount, which represents their service fee and assessment fee charged by Visa or MasterCard. So for Visa cards, I will be showing an example using their currency converter. As you can see in my billing statement, I spent 21,000 Korean won on October 24 and the posting date is October 28. The bank fee for Citi, as mentioned earlier, is at 3.525%. So now let's go to the Visa currency exchange calculator. The amount that you need to enter is 21,000 Korean won. The bank fee is 3.525%. And as for the date, note that you will need to input the posting date rather than the transaction date as per policy. For the card currency, Philippine peso. And transaction currency, Korean won. And just click calculate exchange rate. You should now be able to see the amount in Philippine peso, which is 950 pesos, and the conversion rate below. As you noticed, the amount that appeared in the Visa currency exchange calculator is equal to the amount that was reflected in my billing statement. So in this case, the deducted amount in my bank statement is 950.244. Note, however, that the amount can be slightly different as to what the currency converter is showing. MasterCard has also their own currency converter, so if you are a MasterCard holder, you may use that for your currency conversion. As both of my credit cards are Visa cards, I am only showing Visa currency converter. So as you can see, the figure of actual rate on my spreadsheet is similar to the Visa currency converter. So if you compare the actual rate versus the reference rate, the conversion loss is at 3.3%, which is about the same as the bank fee. So far, we have been looking at various ways of converting money from Philippine peso to Korean won. In our opinion, the method of converting your money will depend on the priority, preference, and situation of the traveler. According to our table, it shows that GCash gives the best rate. So this is suitable especially for budget-conscious travelers. However, this is only accessible if you have a GCash account and GCash MasterCard. The downside, however, is there's a daily limit of 20,000 pesos and monthly limit of 100,000 pesos. If you are a regular user of GCash, this may be disadvantageous for you because of the limit. Otherwise, if you're only visiting, say, South Korea for less than 10 days, the limit should be enough to cover basic expenses. Another method for budget-conscious travelers is converting Philippine peso to USD in Malate or in the bank when their rate is good compared to the reference rate, and then convert US dollars to Korean won in private exchanges in Korea, in our example earlier in Myeongdong, whose exchange rate is good. But please also consider the expense of going to those private exchanges in banks. For travelers who specifically value their time, credit card purchase is the most convenient way for you. If you have a credit card that has a low bank fee, the exchange rate is good enough. Note, however, that some credit cards require authorization to use in foreign countries, so be sure to check with your banks if there's any necessary steps prior to your travel. Another thing to note is that although most purchases can be done via credit card, it is always safe to carry some amount in Korean won for emergency purposes, which you can convert in the airport. For travelers who value safety, airport is most likely to be the most secure place to have your money converted. We will leave our tables link in the description box. You can use this as reference, but do keep in mind that exchange rate change every day and each institution reacts to that differently. So make your own decision and have a nice trip. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any comments and suggestions, just let us know via comments section below.